Hello, my fellow Elden Lords. Hat Creature here, and today we're going to be doing a spell ranking. I'm not covering all the spells or even the incantations. There's a plethora of spells and incantations in this game, so I'll only be focusing on spells that you can get either right out of the gate or without too much story progression. Like you can just travel across the land, do one dungeon, and then you can get those spells that you can get from bosses without progressing too far in the story or into heavily powerful areas. So I'm only covering those types of spells. And also, if you're here at the farming spot like I am, because it's a great place to demonstrate, I have a message. And if you see my message, just give it a thumbs up and the video too, if this farming spot helped you. I'm really happy it helped so many of you. It's great to see people happy. So anyway, let's get into the spells. But I will not be covering locations. This ranking list is purely to demonstrate the spells and whether they're good or not. So if there's something you see and you don't know if it's worth using, or if you don't want to waste money on something, this is a demonstration of those spells. And I give my opinion, most of them are shit, but some of them are really good. So here we go. So first off, we're going to be starting with the basic spell, the Glint Stone Pebble. If you're the astrologer, you start with this one. This spell is definitely one of the best spells in the game. You can take it from start to finish. It will scale with you. Out of all the spells, even though a lot of them are similar, the Glintstone Pebble is a great spell, and it's better than all the other ones when it comes to, you know, just throwing things at people. Because what the Glintstone Pebble has that the others don't is range. See that? The Swift one doesn't have as much range as the Pebble. The Pebble has the most range out of all the spells, and that's why it's the best. Its damage scales, and it's not as powerful as the other ones, but it has range, so you can attack bosses with this. You can attack chonky boys with this. You can attack anything with this, no matter how far away they are, compared to something like the Swift. So the Swift Glintstone Shard, it isn't as powerful, it doesn't have as much range, but it is quicker. You'll be able to cast this much faster than the Pebble, or any of the bigger versions of the Glintstone spells. It's just quicker, but the range is really short, and it doesn't have a lot of stun potential or damage compared to the Pebble. So I do not recommend any of the Swift ones. There is another Swift spell, but this is the Glintstone. It's just awful. And this is why the Pebble is better than all the other ones. No matter how powerful they are, they just don't have the range that the Pebble does. And now we're going to be going to the Great Glintstone Shard. I didn't equip the Comet, but they're basically the same thing. So the Great Glintstone Shard does seem to have just a little bit more range than the Swift, and it does more damage. You could use this. There are a few spells that are very similar to this. They're basically all the same spell with different names and different colors and different magic outputs. But they're basically the same. They don't have as much range, though. The range is awful. See that? Awful. I can't hit him. So if you're trying to fight a boss from range because he's too powerful, you can't use it. Go to the Pebble. So, would I recommend it? I guess. You know, for the damage, and you don't mind being close, go for it. Because it is okay. And there's the Glintstone Comet Shard. It's basically the same thing, but more damage. There's a lot of spells just like this. More damage. But the range is still the same. If they're mid-range, there you go. And I think now we'll be moving on from the Glintstone Comet Shard. There it is. Now for the stars. The stars, so there are several versions. This one fires 3. There's another that fires 5. And then there's another that fires 12. The 12 one is the only one you should ever really use. 3 and 5, you know, they're okay. They fire several glintstone things, but they don't do a lot of damage. And as you can see, you can hit him a whole bunch of times. He'll get too close, 1 or 2 of them might miss, and they don't do enough damage for it to really be worthwhile. So once you get the one that has 12, use that one, and only that one, if you want the stars, because the others just don't cut it. The 12, that's a lot of damage because, you know, it's 12. 5 ain't gonna cut it. 3, even worse. So recommend the 12, but not the other 2 that you buy from selling. Okay, next up we're going to the Glint Stone Arc. This is a great spell. The damage kind of drops off during the late game, but early to mid-game, it's great. The whole thing is crowd control. So if you have a whole bunch of enemies, and they're all coming towards you like a pack of dogs or something, you can just throw this down, and it'll hit all of them at the same time and go through them. It doesn't do well against shields, though. The shield either blocks the damage completely, or it just doesn't go through them. Yeah, so if you have a bunch of guys with shields, don't use this. Only use this for a pack of weak enemies that you need to get rid of quickly. Not strong enemies, because it won't do very well. Just weak enemies. As you can see, he's got a shield. It ain't happening. Okay, so now we have the Crystal Burst. It sounds cool. It shoots out a whole bunch of stars, but it barely does any damage at all, as you can see. You can get this one for free, or you can buy it. Don't buy it, and if you get it for free, don't use it. As you can see, it should be a shotgun blast, but the damage is so small and pathetic, it can barely stun them, if at all. The damage isn't worthwhile. I do not recommend Crystal Burst. There's a better version of it later on in the game, for free, at the Academy, but that's the good one. Now here we go, you can see me failing to use Crystal Barrage right there. That's also pretty bad. Crystal Barrage is a machine gun spell. It fires a torrent of spells, and because it's fast, it should outweigh the weak damage, but it doesn't. It just doesn't do enough damage. If you're throwing a whole bunch of peas at somebody that were boiled and they're really soft, it doesn't matter how many boiled peas you're going to be throwing at somebody, they're still boiled peas. Now, if you throw, like, a bag of shit at somebody over and over and over again, that's going to be a lot better than boiled peas. And that's basically this spell. That's how bad this spell is. It is peas, and the other one is a bag of shit. And the shit's better. So now we're moving on to these spells, the Phalanx Dagger spells, basically. There are 2 versions of them. This one does better stun damage than the other one, but this one, okay, this is the Phalanx. This is the actual spell. It is upgraded because it has a bunch of daggers, you know, good damage. But the other one that I'm using in this footage is from Roguier's Rapier. It's an Ash of War, but it's the same spell that you can buy. It's just an Ash of War. Now, I don't know if the Ash of War is better than the normal one, but if they're the same, then I would definitely recommend the smaller version, because that one seems to stun enemies more often, while the other one is meant for damage. So if you're doing a warrior build, and you want these daggers, you would use these daggers to kind of get a first hit without throwing a spell at them. It would stun them, and then you can do a critical attack. But the bigger one is purely for damage. See that? Stun, critical attack. So it's good for warriors. If you're a normal spellcaster, do not recommend. If you're a fighter, melee, then I recommend. Now here's one of my favorites. It's the Magic Glint Blade. This is a great spell. The Prisoner starts with this one. So you put out a thingamajigger, it takes a while, but eventually a sword shoots out. And it's just great. If you're fighting someone with a shield, they'll chase you. You put down a whole bunch of these, and as they're chasing you, the dagger will hit them from behind. So it does track the enemy, but only before it fires. Once it fires, it no longer tracks. Or it tries to, but not very much. This is a great spell. I definitely recommend the Magic Glint Blade. I love this spell. Totally worth it. Now we have Night Shard, which is basically the same thing as the Swift Glintstone. Bad range. better damage than the Swift Glintstone, but it just has horrible range. And while it is really fast, it's just not good enough. I would ignore this completely and just go for the Pebble. Just use the Glintstone Pebble. It's the best one of all of them. It has decent damage, and the damage gets better and better. This is just for speed. So if you had a lot of magic you can just waste, or if you want to look cool being gothic like I do, then you can use this one. And while you look cool, you're not cool, because you just died for trying to use that spell. Now here's Night Comet. This is better. The range is a little better. Like, it can definitely go farther than the Night Shard, and it does more damage, but the Pebble still has superior range. And the Night Comet costs more. The Night Comet uses way more magicka than the Pebble, and it doesn't go as far. So, do not recommend Night Comet. But the damage is good. But the cost is too high. I think it's 52. I think it's 52 magic. So, Ambush Shard, right here. Highly recommend. Especially in the beginning of the game. Get this spell. Ambush Shard is for people with a shield. If someone with a shield is giving you a problem and you can't hit them with a spell, Ambush Shard hits them from the back. So while they're facing towards you, they're getting pummeled in the back by your spell. This is perfect for shields, especially in the early game, because there's a lot of people with shields right at the start of the game, and you're going to want this spell. Really easy to get. It's in the Weeping Peninsula, the Witchbane's place on the left-hand side by the Evergaol. Great spell. Definitely recommend. Okay, next up, Rock Sling. This is a boss killer. Rock Sling is... It has great physical damage, but it's mostly used... I use it for stunning. Most bosses, I can hit them with 3 of these, and it'll stun them, and then you can go in for a critical hit. Even though I have spells like Comet Azur, I'm still going to Rock Sling for bosses. It's cheaper. It's a lot of high damage spells, and it does great damage. Like I find that this does more damage than some of the more stronger Glintstone or the Ice Crack spell. Good damage and stun. Stun is the best thing, so I highly recommend in this. It's for free. I don't even remember where you get it. Oh, yeah. You get it in the same area as a Meteorite Staff. Great spell, highly recommend. Okay, next up we have the Shattering Crystal. I think you'll get this one for free at the Academy, I believe. I might be wrong. This is great. This is the upgraded version to the other one you saw in the beginning. This is the one you want. It's a good shotgun blast. It's great for crowd control. It has short range, but that's okay because it has a wide span of damage. It just goes wide. It's a shotgun blast. That's all it is, and it's amazing. Good damage, but you need to use it carefully. If you don't time it right, you will get hit, and it won't be worth it. So be careful. Don't get too close, but they can't be too far away. If they're more than an arm's length away, it won't hit, so they need to be in half an arm. But if they're any closer, fuck you. Next up, we have the Glintstone Ice Crag. I actually prefer this one over the other empowered Glintstones, like the Comet or the Greater Shard. The Pebble is still better, but this one also has freezing damage. Freezing damage seems like it makes enemies take more damage. Kind of lowers their damage resistance, as you'll see later on when I have another freezing spell. So I definitely recommend Glintstone Ice Crack. The range isn't that good, but the freezing potential is good, and that's why I recommend it. Now we have Reynala's Full Moon. You can get this from her Remembrance if you duplicate it and try to get both items. This does a good amount of damage, but the point of Reynala's Full Moon is actually to lower magic resistance. It doesn't force them to take more damage, it just takes away their magical shield that they have. But it does a lot of damage on its own. And right there, I tried to show them taking more damage, but it's kind of hard to tell that they take more damage. Next up, Loretta's Great Bow. You get this one for beating a boss. It's great. It's a powerful bow. You can just shoot it. You can charge it up to full damage and do a lot of power. It's not good against shields, but overall, it's a powerful spell, and I love using it. Some enemies, it just doesn't do much. Some bosses, well, most bosses, it doesn't do much. But I recommend it. You know, it looks cool, and it's powerful. Yeah, Loretta's Great Bow. Oh, here we go. Obviously, highly recommended. Best damage spell in the game. Everybody knows about it. Comet Azur. I use it terribly in this footage, so I don't actually get to demonstrate how amazing this spell is. I actually demonstrate its weaknesses. Now, while it does a lot of damage against bosses, and that's where you want it, if they're too close, or if they're down a hill, or even if they're up a hill, you might not even be able to hit them. So there are weaknesses to this spell. It does a lot of damage, but you have to be careful on how you use it and who you use it on. See, he has a shield. I can't hit him. So you would be better using another spell. But yes, this is an incredibly powerful spell. I would not recommend it in PvP. Someone used it against me, and they missed in a thin hallway. Yeah, they missed in a thin hallway, and they missed. There you go. But it is a powerful spell. So, of course, I recommend. It's for free. You can get it at the beginning of the game. But it has weaknesses. Next up, we have the Gale of Hema, one of the few melee spells. It's a giant hammer, and you can use it over and over again. It's not good against shields, but not much is. It has great stun damage. You can knock people over. It is the alternate version of the Carrion Slicer. And yes, we're going to be going into the melee spells now. So here we go, the Carrion Slicer. It is a fast sword. The thing about this sword is it has a wind up for the first hit, but every hit after the first one, it's faster. So you can dodge and then immediately start slicing with this spell. Highly recommended for a spell sword. If you want close melee damage, but you don't have a melee weapon, definitely use the Carrion Slicer. Highly recommended. One of the best spells in the game, in my opinion. The other version is the Carrion Greatsword. Yeah, right there, the Carrion Greatsword. It is slower, but it does more damage, and it can hit multiple targets. Just like that. There you go, multiple targets, amazing damage. The higher your intelligence and the more powerful your staff, the more damage it will do. I'm intentionally using a weak staff for all this footage. Now, that's how slow it is, but look at it with Azure Staff. Azure Staff makes all spells cast faster. So now, if you just want to use the Carrion Greatsword, use it with Azure Staff, and you can just repeatedly, semi-quickly, just start hitting a whole bunch of people. Could you use this on a boss? Of course you could, because it also goes through shields. Great spell. Definitely recommend in certain situations, because, you know, it can be slow. And it's not like the Carrion Slicer. It will always have a wind-up time. But it has a 3-hit combo. Okay, next up we have the Rock Blaster. It is a short-range, area of effect attack. Do not recommend, because it takes too long to use, and it can't really stun enemies. It's supposed to stun them, so if an enemy gets close to you while you're charging it, some enemies will get stunned and they can't move, and you lock them in place, and then you do the damage. But it's not worth it, because the damage isn't high enough. No matter how hard you charge it, it isn't really going to do anything for you, because they're too close for comfort. And that's the drawback of this spell. Not enough damage for the close range. So I do not recommend Rock Blaster, even though you get it for free in an incredibly hard dungeon. It's just not worth it. Just use the Carrion Slicer. Just use the Carrion Greatsword. Just use a melee weapon. Don't use this spell. And you might say that against the Carrion Slicer and the Greatsword, but no, the Carrion Slicer and the Carrion Greatsword, those can do an extreme amount of damage compared to melee weapons. So they're good on their own. The Rock Blaster is not. Okay, so let's say you're a warrior. You want to hit people with your swords and you want to use a shield. You want to go melee, but you want to use magic. Scholar's Armament empowers your melee weapons as long as they don't have any status effects. So if your weapon has a blood loss or poison or a magical ash of war, you cannot use this. Only normal weapons can use Scholar's Armament, but it greatly enhances the damage of your melee weapons. So if you have a powerful weapon, this will make it even more powerful. It will make an OP weapon even more OP. This is great. Highly recommend. If you want to use magic, but you don't want to invest too much in magic because you're melee, definitely get this spell. If this is the only spell that you could get, definitely get Scholar's Armament. And there is another version for a shield. So the shield version, I don't know if I can recommend it. You might as well just get a better shield. So the whole point of this is you empower your shield to absorb more damage. The thing is, though, depending on your build, it might just do good enough. Your shield might just be absorbing all the damage. Now, my character is a mage. I cannot properly demonstrate the usefulness of this spell. But as you can see, this guy is hitting me. He's already not doing a lot of damage with this shield. With this shield, he's barely doing anything. He is hurting me, but teeny tiny, whatever the hell, I don't give a shit. Now, if I empowered this shield to take more damage, then, well, he's already not doing damage. So I would say just get a better shield. Even if you're parrying, it's not going to help a shield that parries, because a shield that parries is supposed to parry. It's not supposed to take damage. So it's up to you if you want to test out empowering your shield or not. And what is next? Oh, Scholar's Armament. No. Yes, Gravity Well. So let's say you're in PvP. Let's say you have a spellcaster or a flying creature. You use Gravity Well to pull in your enemy. And it doesn't go very far, but you can cast it multiple times. So I would really only recommend this in PvP. It's too dangerous for a spellcaster. So basically, you're invading somebody, and they're just running around, and they're letting their friend kill you, because it doesn't matter if they die. As long as the host runs around like an idiot and doesn't get hit, you won't be able to win. So use Gravity Well to pull them in closer to you, and then you can get hits in. That's basically all this is for, but it's really slow, and it doesn't pull them in very far. I really wouldn't recommend it unless you need it. So if you invade somebody, you can get this spell just by going to the academy and killing the enemy that uses it. That's it. That would be the only reason you would ever use this spell. Okay, misplaced spell footage. This is the Canon of Hema. It is a powerful spell. It has an arc, though, and it doesn't go very far. So right here, I'm on top of a hill. It's definitely gonna reach most enemies, and it does great damage. You can hold it and charge it for it to do more damage, but it consumes a lot of magicka, and it doesn't go too far unless you're on a hill. If you're on a flat plane, it definitely won't go far at all, especially if they're running towards you. You can use this at close range, but it might be just a little bit too slow for a close range. I wouldn't recommend it, but you might like it. You might find yourself enjoying it more than the other powerful spells. So if you want to try it, definitely go try any of these. You might get use out of them, that I or somebody else don't. Everyone's playstyle is different. Let's see. Here we go. So 2 area of effect spells. This is Night Maiden's Mist. It's not worth it. You cast it, and then any enemy within the mist takes damage over time, even you. So if you're within the mist, you will take damage. But you can only have 1 mist at a time. You cannot cast multiple mists. And as you can see, you have to kite enemies through the mist, but because you're running in a circle, they'll run in a circle. I do not recommend. If you could spray this at enemies, that'd be great. If you could carpet an area with this spell, that'd be great. But you can't. And it damages you too, which prevents it from being OP, but also prevents it from being useful, because it damages you too. I do not recommend this spell at all. But there is another one that's similar that you might like right here. So this is Freezing Mist. It's part of the Ice Crag and the Ice spells. Basically what this does, it does not hurt you. This one does not hurt you. It only hurts enemies, but it also freezes them. While they're in this Freezing Mist, it builds up the frost meter. And then when it reaches its apex, they take damage, but you do more damage. I've tested this out, and I'm like absolutely certain that when they got frostbite and they're cold and they're freezing, they take more damage. So you would use this in a group. You could use this against a boss or a really strong enemy. Put it down, build up their frost meter, and then go to town on them and start attacking them. They should take more damage. I'm using a rapier here, but when I wasn't recording, I was using different melee weapons, and those weapons were definitely doing more damage when they were frozen. The rapier just was not a good example for this footage, because it doesn't do a lot of damage as it is, so when it does more damage, it takes longer to notice it, but you might see it. And now for the support spells, the anti-magic spells. This is Eternal Darkness. It is the best one out of all the anti-magic. You cast it, it opens up a wormhole, and it consumes all magic cast at you when you're next to it. If you go too far, the spells will not be sucked in. This is amazing. If you're a spellcaster, use this, as it only consumes the enemy spells, not your spells. So when they're trying to attack you, they can't hit you, but then you use your spells and you can hit them back. So this version is for spellcasters, not warriors. There is another one made for warriors, but this one is for spellcasters. And it is good, I guess. I mean, I don't use it because I don't think about it. I don't face many spellcasters. But if I did face a lot of spellcasters, when I had this spell, I wasn't even at the academy. If I had this when I was at the academy, I would have used it. But I didn't have it. So totally get this spell before you get to the academy, because that's when it's good. Past that point, you don't really get to use it too often. But amazing spell, you get it at Celia, Town of Sorcery. Now, the next spell, I believe, Thops's Barrier. You get this at the academy after you meet these guys. So when you're done with the academy, then you get it. It is horrible. Do not get it. This is a disgusting, awful spell. It's supposed to block spells, but the casting is too slow. So while they're firing at you, you're trying to cast it. And as you can see, I maybe cast it once because they were pummeling me with spells. If I had to go into cover to use a spell to block spells, it's not working. I have to be out in the open, block the spell. Right there, I'm blocking these spells, but it's too slow. Their spells are too fast for Thops's Barrier to react to. It's just not good enough. If it created like a bubble around you, it'd be good. But otherwise, it's awful. So here's one for warriors. So if you're a warrior and you need anti-magic, this is a spell you're going to use. This is Carrion's Retaliation. It's a parry. It's a magical parry. The point of this is that you swing it, it consumes a spell, and then it creates a magical glint blade around you. and then the closer you get to the target, they finally shoot out and hit the target. So as a warrior who parries, because if you're not good at parrying, you can't use this, you're just like me then. You're going to try and use it for footage, and then you'll utterly fail and not be able to show how amazing it is. So if you're a warrior, you're going to be parrying spells as you're going towards them. You're moving towards your enemy, and you're parrying other spells, slowly building up all these blades. And then when you finally get into melee range, the blades shoot out, stun and damage your enemy, and then you can finish them off with your melee attacks. That's what this spell is for. It's not really for spellcasters, it's made for melee people. And it's great, but my main character is a spellcaster, so I don't really get to use it. But I do enjoy it, and I highly recommend it. You get this one at the same place you get the Night Maiden's Mist, Saluvis, past the Carrion Mansion. I might make a video to show locations of all of these spells, because some of them, they're way out there. If you enjoyed, please remember to press the like and subscribe button. I'm not sure what other Elden Ring videos I'll be doing. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But if you got any ideas or if you have any important questions, just go ahead and ask. I am by no means an expert at all. Some of this I get from the wiki. A lot of this is from my own personal experience. But anyway, thank you guys, and have a great day.